Okay, first off, hi, hello. My hands are sweaty. I had to take a chill even. And it's because this is what's going to tie into my topics tonight. I feel like is competing against yourself and your best self when you are stuck in trenches and circumstances in life. And, you know, if you don't know my story, I've been around for about 5 years, but I started off really very fast. I hit a lot of amazing, beautiful things very fast. And even, last year you saw me spoke on Thrive Palooza, all these highs, I feel like. But besides behind the scenes, no one knew the trenches that I've been fighting in for about a year and a half, mainly that had stemmed from like some family circumstances, which I'll dive a little bit more into. But I really want to talk about the power of you when you're using those trenches as your launching pads and how to really navigate through that. Because I know for me, even me showing up tonight was hard. My son got suspended, and this is me being full transparent with you guys. Like mom life, I have a 15-year-old. I had him at 16. So I have all the things. He got suspended Thursday. He's home today. So I'm dealing with all the mom life, all the life. But that doesn't stop me from showing up the way that God's intended for me to show up. And that is my best self. I have high expectations on myself, and not as a performance based, but I know the calling that he has placed on my heart. I overdosed at the age of 19. I have been through hell and high water. And I think it's so important for people to understand I wouldn't change those obstacles or circumstances for anything. But what you have to realize when we're in these seasons, like we're in Christmas time, this is a time where business is like a snowball effect of momentum. We're entering 2023 and we have this vision of where we want to go and what we want it to look like. And sometimes like ego, discipline, like lack of discipline, procrastination, all these things can get in the way around these times. And this is what separates a lot of the 80% from the 20% is what you do in these moments when you're facing those trenches, when you're facing those hard times, and when you're going through those storms. And I think the biggest thing is this year for me has been one of my hardest years in business. And I have no problem sharing that because it's very evident. And it shows in my content. It shows with how I show up as a leader. But the one thing my team has never seen me not do is not show up. I will fight in the trenches with them. I will run in the storms with them. I will face adversity. And you guys, I am a red personality, and I get very judged for that, misunderstood for that. People don't see the heart behind it. It comes with the territory. And I think this is something that if you want success, you have to be willing to be misunderstood. And success is not a numbers thing. I earned a 200K rank match bonus last year. And I can tell you right now, that's the most beautiful thing when you're paying off debt and doing all these things, but money does not make or break you. And I'm saying that from experience. I'm saying that if you want to build wealth, you want to build longevity, I want an empire. Like this isn't just like me fighting for me. This is me fighting for my team. This is me fighting for my son's future. This is me paving that stewardship of generational wealth and cycle breaking. And so I don't want him to see those traumas I had to go through to learn the hard way and pass those on to him. So if your path is more difficult, it's because your calling is higher. And I want you to really resonate with that because so many of us, we're going through things behind the scenes that no one knows what we're going through. But I think the one thing I have learned, I've always been such a strong person, and being strong comes with the fall. It's like, oh, you're strong. You just know how to show up. You just know how to do these things. People put that expectation. And I think what happens is when your path is higher, you have to learn to self-motivate. You have to learn to be disciplined. You also have to learn to give yourself grace. See, work is a form of therapy for me. It allows me to be able to take the things that I know I need to grow in and bring it to the forefront within my business so that I can share that with my community that follows me. Because I never want people to see these highlight reels and just see, oh, it was easy. I want people to see that I'm spicy. I don't apologize for it. I show up unwaveringly. And I know how it can look when it's like you see top leaders and all these things. I'm so past the point of materialistic stuff that it's like depth now. And I think the thing is, we all have to experience different levels of us, different versions of us, different seasons of us. And there's nothing wrong with where you're at right now, and give yourself grace. But here's the thing. Your circumstances are going to define what you do next. And what you do next is what the expectation you put on yourself. And see, I truly believe that we're all capable of greatness. Now, if you play small, you stay small. And I am going to say these spicy things, so I hope it doesn't offend anyone. But I think the biggest thing is when you have these high of highs and you have these expectations of, okay, I want to go here, 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 and then you're surrounded with people that may not have that vision. I know for me as a leader, I would go down to their level of like, okay, well, let's just like coast to where you're at, or let's just kind of like water down how we word things or water down how we lead. It's easy to let the obstacles that we go through get into the way of how we maneuver our businesses. And see, the business is never the problem. It's always us. And I want us to realize that it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's that you're sitting and you're stuck. No one's ever stuck. You're just not moving. And so here's the thing that you have to realize is you got to take your disappointments and turn them into your divine appointments. And for me, this takes me back. It makes me even emotional thinking about it. This makes me back to like a year and a half ago. We do not communicate with my in-law side of the family at all anymore. We had a very strong relationship for a very amount of years. There was some substance abuse stuff that we didn't want around us. Long story short, I had to put boundaries up and I became the target. And so it is the way the cookie crumbled. But the thing I've learned through those things of being talked about, ridiculed, being talked about as an individual, a mom, a business owner, all those things, I lost myself in those things. And it's okay because it's given me the opportunities to develop the character to sustain the vision that God's already put in my heart. I never have not said that we aren't meant for greatness. This community, I'm truly like, Court knows I love this community more than anything in the world. And there is nothing like LaBelle. And when you have these tugs in your heart that you're meant for so much more, that means you raise your bar. And so what I mean by that is a thermostat. You hear me talk about this a little bit. If you know me, you know me. I've talked about this. A thermostat set it like, let's say 75, or maybe it's winter. It's set it like it's high right now. You're setting at this specific level. And that's how your work ethic, your mindset, your thought patterns, your response patterns, your behaviors will keep operating to is that level, because that's where that thermostat's set to. But if you want to go to the next, you can't take the old you into the new you. And in order to do that, you have to raise your thermostat. And so that is also going to come with boundaries. That's also going to come with your thought patterns, your response patterns. A lot of us, we get in this justification of either we're hustling too much or we're justifying why we're not hustling enough. And I think that's that we live in this cult. I don't know how it happened, but like toxic hustle culture. And see, for me, I love to work, but I also know how to unplug. But I don't know how to justify taking days off, resting for that. Like, that's just not how I'm built. If that's you, cool. But at the end of the day, is it giving you results? Because our job is to get people on Thrive. Our job is to give people, I heard Tommy and Q say this the other day, this is a gift. Like, what we have is a gift. And I don't take that lightly. These are futures that I hold in my hands. And if I piss a little bit of people off along the road, they're either not here any longer or didn't go anywhere. And I always say that I can't talk to the cheap seats. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean that the cheap seats are always going to take the easy way. They're always going to want to hear the easy things. They're always going to pay the least amount of money to get the most amount of what. And so this is where you have to realize, are you separating yourself from the best, or are you being like the rest? And so when, I might have said that backwards, but when you are operating like everyone else, you're going to keep attracting all that same vibe back to you, that mindset, that work ethic, that behavior. And see, when you have high expectations for yourself, not everyone's going to get it. And that's okay. You cannot say the wrong thing to your right people. And I love Court. I've come to Court for so many years because she's embodied grace on fire. And I know that's like her thing, but like she literally embodies that in so many different levels. And I've always been like the, not black sheep, but like the misunderstood person because I don't have a filter sometimes. And I had to realize that if my heart is postured in a way of love and service, then it's not my job to worry about how someone else perceives it. Hurt people, okay? And so when we turn our disappointments into divine appointments, you have to start realizing what you do with this between your trenches and between your high points are what's going to make or break you. So you're like, okay, well, how do you get up? How do you move past your trenches? How do you use your trenches as your opportunities? You got to look for God, your faith in those trenches. See, if you're always focused on the problem, you're always going to find the problem. If you're always focused on what's not enough, it's never going to be enough. If you always focus on what you can't do, you're never going to be able to do it. And see, so many of us, we want to be told the easy things instead of the things that are going to make us grow. And this past year, and the reason I'm referring to this past year, because this past year, I self-sabotaged the crap out of myself. I watered myself down. I played it small. I watched how I worded things. I allowed other people's leadership to kind of be like the thing that influenced me. And I got in my own way. And I know my team needed to see me rise, and how they needed to see that is me taking back my voice, my power. I call it my power place. My power place is where you either are going to use that gift of that problem you're in right now and use it as your motivation. Because here's the thing, if your income doesn't reflect what you deserve, then why are you chilling? If your mindset doesn't reflect the things that feed your growth, then why aren't you developing your roots? Because a lot of us, we put self-development on, but if it's not digging into the roots of what you're fighting in, like for me, self-sabotaging, it's called the upper level limits. I was scared of going to the next level because of what did it look like, what it entailed. So instead of like going to the next level, I self-sabotaged and sunk back into comfort, which is how our subconscious brain is programmed. See, our brains keep us safe. And so you have to learn to stretch it. If you're not getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, then you're playing it probably small. Because if you're always playing in the comfort zones, you're probably not seeing your business flourish to the way that it truly can. And see, seasons, we choose how long we're in a season. We are never in a season longer than we allow. And if you're constantly like, I'm in a season, I'm in this, I'm in that, that is you justifying why you're not acting. See, confidence is never there, it's built. I always reference a muscle. Confidence is built through adversity. It's built through the stretching, the fire, the resistance, the hard, and it grows. And the more it grows, the more your actions grow, the more your belief grows. The biggest tip I can give you when you're building your launching pads for yourself is realize how important self-efficacy, I can't ever say this word, self-efficacy or efficiency or whatever, I'll give you the spelling, but if you know what I'm talking about, it's how you view yourself. How you view yourself is what's going to make or break you. And you guys, I was over 215 pounds at one point, had been in a domestic abusive relationship, had every excuse under the book. You don't need to feel good to build your confidence. You need to show up for it. And the more you keep those promises to yourself, the more that grows. See, self-love is keeping those promises to yourself. And so you're either going to find the problem or you're going to find the gift in the solution. We don't see things as we are. We don't see things as they are. People that want to go somewhere, they see things as they are. So if you're in these circumstances of, okay, how do I get up? How do I move different? How do I pivot? How do I start changing the circumstances that I'm being presented with? Stop looking at the circumstance and look at yourself, because you are your only thing that will ever make or break you. And I'm speaking from, hey, I went from here high on all my success kites to, hey, I'm running from myself now because now it's time to do some bigger digging deep. And that can be scary. But what you don't realize is the birthing process that builds your character and the foundation of what's next. So first, get clear on your goals heading into 2023. If without vision, people perish. And I know we probably have heard this quite a few times. And I'm not saying like your materialistic goals. I'm saying like, get clear on what debt you need to pay off. Get clear on what income you need to make on a weekly basis. Get clear on what your family time looks like. Get clear on what type of traveling you want to do. Get clear on your credit score. Get clear on if you want to buy a house, have rental, and whatever it may be. Get clear on those things and make mile markers towards that. See, when you're conflicted in your mind, you're going to always find the problem and never be fully in action. I want to dive deep into that for a second. See, when no one knows what you're thinking about except for you. Like we can post a great amount of things. We can post all these little great like Pinterest quotes and all these things, right? But what are you really thinking about behind the scenes? Because those thirst thoughts, those things that you're thinking that no one else knows, those are the things that are detrimental to your actions, your belief, and your success. And I can tell you right now, when you're self-sabotaging, it's very hard. Your mind's a battlefield. And so you have to learn to find your peace, your joy, your faith through those processes. And that comes through understanding that you wouldn't be here if God didn't have a purpose for it. And that purpose, he led you here. And now you have to truly develop that character of sustaining what you're building. And what I mean by that is, let's say you want to make 6 figures in this industry, or you're starting out in this industry. That fact that that's on your heart and that's where you want to go, like, hey, I'm making millions and that's where I'm going. So that's what I believe. So if I believe that, I need to learn how to steward that before my character has to handle that. Do you get what I'm saying? And so in order for that to happen, you have to go through the refinement. You have to go through the trenches. It's kind of like common sense for me. But when I'm in it, I'm like, what the heck is going on? So when you're going through that, that means you're on the right path. And I think this is what makes or breaks people. There's 2 types of people. They either run when it gets hard or they push even harder. And I know what I'm about, but I need you to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what are you about? Because time will either expose you or promote you. And that's the biggest thing I can ever tell you when it comes to this industry, or any business owner that I know that's successful. Time always will expose you or promote you. And see, when you're conflicted, you're missing the calling that God's trying to push you to, because it's your greatest blessing that's refined in that fire. And see, most people only see the hard, the problem, this, that, the lack. And if you're expanding on the lack, that's what's going to grow. And so we get so hyper focused on the things, but if we just flip the script in our perspective, do you know how big of a blessing that will be in 90 days from now? I always say it takes 21 days to create a habit. It takes 90 days to create a lifestyle. See, we're in a health and wellness field. And so with that being said, that means I'm sharing, I fall down, I eat cookies, I love all the things, like, don't get me wrong, but I'm sharing how I get up if I do fall down. I'm sharing how I work out when I don't want to at all. I'm sharing the amazing products that we stand behind. And so often we lose the gratitude around the small things, and the small things are what's going to build your business. It's not the big wins. The big wins are a blessing and they're beautiful, and I'm not ever going to water that down. But the biggest thing I can ever give you is the small mundane things that you do on an every single day basis are where your business is built. And if you're avoiding the hard, your life will be hard, because I'm telling you, I said this on stage. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And it's not, Corey has said this before, it's not that it gets easier, it gets better. Your character knows how to handle it. Your mindset knows how to handle it. You're like, hey, people are going to act like that. I'm not going to feed that. People are going to walk away because they lost sight of their own vision. I'm not going to feed that. My vision is rooted in my calling of where my heart is. My heart tells me, hey, I'm meant for this. I know I can fight. I know I can get up. But it's when you comes to the hard, it doesn't meet the expectations of where we want it to go. We have a tendency of watering it down and playing it small and avoiding the action and just going through the routine of showing up like to our stories or to our posts. You guys, the business behind the scenes is what's going to truly build the bread and butter to your business. And when I say those things, it really comes down to vulnerability. Vulnerability is a superpower. And so often look at how the world is these days. It's not like we're oblivious to all the things that are going on in this world, right? Imagine, and I'm not saying you need to put on a show or act like things are easy and peasy and rainbows and sunshine. If you're going through things, share those things, but in a way that doesn't be a victim, but a victor. Because at so many times we want validation versus accountability. And accountability will look like an attack when we're not ready to move differently. And so when you're not ready to move differently, you're going to look at it one or two ways. You're going to look at it like, woe is me, or, oh, it's me. And so when it's you, it doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to add up. It just needs to match your belief. And when you match your belief, your vision will start to match and your vision will grow. When I first started this business, I came in for a car and it turned into an empire, and the thing is, it doesn't, and I'm going to say this too, bringing your husband home is not like the key either, because my husband lost himself over the last year and went back to work recently because he just needed something to do. That doesn't mean we're not successful. That doesn't mean we aren't paving a path of whatever. You got to realize not every success story needs to look the same. And I just felt like saying that because so often I hear people that are afraid to like work and be a 200K because they like to work, or to be able to open up a nonprofit and be you can do anything you put your mind to, but you have to have milestones that match that vision. And so first off, get clear on what you're fighting for. Like I said, write down that vision, get clear on those things. Second thing, you need to set a timetable for where you're going. And not like, hey, like an expectation of like, oh, in 60 days, I am this. Cool. That's how I worked. And honestly, I didn't really disappoint myself. I made it happen. I get if that makes you feel uncomfortable. So what I will say is you should always be fighting for the next. And what I mean by that is if you're a 4K leader, there is no way you should be chilling at 4K. You should be running towards 12K. Okay, now you're a 12K leader. Cool. Now you got to be showing up as a 40K leader. How do you see your 40K leaders lead? Duplication, layered leadership, community, culture, not like going off and doing your own thing and branching out and all these things and thinking you know it all, because you don't. I don't. I will always get advice from every single person in the room that brings value. You don't need a rank to have a seat at the table either. So many of you guys are watering down your full potential because you're worried about how someone else is going to look at it or what they're going to say or whatever. Piss people off. And in the way of respect, I'm not meaning that in a disrespectful way. I mean, show yourself what you're capable of. Learn to lead by example. You don't need a cheer squad. You don't need this validation of like, this is that. You don't need to have that. And I think that can come from a place of roots as well. And this is why I say self-development, because so many of us, we want to be validated and seen versus actually loving ourselves and proving it to ourselves. See, I don't need a show to show up. I need myself, and I fight for me. This isn't even really about my son and my husband at the end of the day. And I know that sounds kind of selfish. It's about me. As someone that went through an addiction, as someone that was a mom at 16, as someone that was told in school that I would never go anywhere in life. My in-laws told me all kinds of beautiful things last year. It is not about me, it's not about that. It's about me showing myself that I can. And the more that we learn to love ourselves in that full capacity of showing up for ourselves, the more you're going to give the gifts of the best you to everyone else you love. Because I can't be a good mom, a good wife, a good leader, a good woman in this planet if I'm not being the best version for me first. And so often we get lost in the sauce trying to be the best mom and the best leader and the best wife, but we forget to take care of ourselves. So if I were to ask you, what are 5 things about you off the bat, you would probably say mom or wife first, instead of the things that make you you. Hey, and those are the things that we have to get back into the root of what makes you joyful. So when I was in these hard seasons, and I'm still in them, and I still practice these things, one thing I can tell you that has brought me so much joy throughout the process of growth is finding the joy in the gaps and the gain in the gaps. And if you haven't read that book, The Gain in the Gaps, I talked about it, or we talked about it on a mastermind not too long ago. It's really helped giving me a fresh perspective of when your mind can go into the gap versus the gain, and how simple it is over the littlest things. There was an example of a child wanting like 5 Barbie dolls, right? And this 5 Barbie dolls, they were having them, they got them. Their little sister came around and took one of the Barbie dolls, but they had 4 left still. And those 4 Barbie dolls, I know I'm using Barbie dolls as an example, but I promise this has purpose. They had those 4 Barbie dolls still, could play with them, could have fun, but they were so hyper focused on that one that they didn't have that they missed the joy of what they could have done during the time that they got to play, because she was hyper focused on what the little sister took. See, when we learn to live in the gain, we can find that those obstacles we're being faced with, the joy that we need to get back into, the grace that we need to give, but the grace that follows action. Okay. Because a lot of us will justify why we're unplugging. We'll justify why we're not showing up. We'll justify our hard seasons. But then at the end of the day, is that going to compound a year from now the way that you want it to? Because if it doesn't matter in a year from now, then I'm not going to water it where a version of me doesn't align. So I'm going to say this, and I won't take up too much of your guys' time, but we got to stop moaning and you got to lead at the same time. See, if you're always moaning about what's going on, you're going to always find the problem. And there's 2 answers to every problem. Okay. There's either the solution or there's the person that keeps wanting to find the moaning. And so leaders don't complain. They don't make excuses. And I'm a big believer on that. We may have our hard times. We may have all these things going on behind the scenes that make us like want to pull our hair out. But I know one thing, I will not go to any of my mentors, any of my uplines, or anybody and be like complaining or making excuses. There is this season, like I said, I had struggled a lot with my mental health mainly. And it was a season that I had to really start figuring out why, why am I letting why am I letting these things get in my mental health? What is going on with those roots? So dig deep in that. I want to use my best friend, Megan, as an example too, just really quick, because so many people use like, hey, you don't have the support or the circumstances right now to like get up. I didn't have an upline. Megan's my upline and she left for a year, and you've got to hear her speak. She's phenomenal. And that wasn't easy. So there's 2 versions of that. There's the people that will use that and like kind of like take that time to fall. But you saw her get back up and she is growing and she's going to be at 200K this year. But then you see people like, hey, I didn't have an upline. Court didn't have an upline. Don't use whatever you're using as an excuse to coast. So often we use time, circumstances, support, family, light freaking fires. Okay. And that's the best thing I can say. Light this match on fire and make your life show what you deserve. Break glass ceilings. You can raise babies and you can raise bank accounts. You can do it all. There's no reason you can't unless you're telling yourself you can't. And I think so often we put caps on what we're capable of. When we're not seeing what we want, we justify the inaction. But I'm telling you, in these moments, this is what separates the best from the rest. And this isn't like a top leader thing and only top leaders succeed. This is you versus you. And if you want your life to transform, this is where you look yourself in the mirror and you say, when is enough enough? Because you got 2 weeks till the 2023. Does your last year look the same as this year? Or whatever I meant to say? Because at the end of the day, I know this year was a year that I needed to go through. This is a year that I needed to face. I needed to root up some childhood trauma and some things I've been through, and I needed to grow. And I'm so thankful because I had this space. I had this community. I had this business opportunity. I could not imagine working, and this like props for all of you that work still, because that just shows you even more how committed you are to your vision. There is nothing wrong with doing both. And you can do it all. And at the end of the day, get connected with what that looks like for you, though. There's no reason I can't make income claims, but there's no reason you cannot like blow glass ceilings up. And I'm sitting here telling you that this business, nothing compares to your leadership. You guys have phenomenal leaders on this. And this is one thing I love. It's community over competition. The one thing I will say is your heart posture will always shine the loudest, because it's not about let's blow all these numbers and all these things and all these ranks, all the things, right? It's about work hard in silence and let success be your noise. That's my biggest thing I can say at the end of this. I hope I got everything out that I needed to. I'd ramble a lot, you know me, Court. But that's it. That's all I had tonight.
Oh, I love you. You always like light my soul on fire. I've watched you literally walk through fire carrying like buckets of water for people, and I know that you will continue to do that. You're just you're like an old soul, and you have such a vision, and you're so unshakable, and anyone that's around you for any amount of time like can, I don't know, like you just rub off on people, right? Like, and you give people strength and courage and to keep putting one foot in front of the other when things are not easy. And like you said, something that I do always say, it doesn't ever get easier. You just get better. You just get stronger. Your arms get stronger and you can handle a little bit more. And that's exactly what Britt has done over and over and over again. And yeah, she does. Whoever you are, iPhone, yes, she does. Britt makes you believe in yourself. Thank you so much for tonight. I'm proud of you as a friend. I'm really, really proud of you. I know that you've walked through some hard days, and just you do it with grace and this like fierceness. And I love your red personality. I'm the same way. And I always say, you know, when I'm old and in the nursing home one day, I want someone to like tell the nurse that I smell like shit instead of telling everyone else. I want someone to tell me to my face. And I appreciate friends and leaders like you. So you guys go find Britt on social media if you're not already following her. And just thank you so much, Britt. This year was good. Next year's about to be great.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Court. I love you so
You're
much.
welcome. Love you, Britt.
Merry Christmas.
You too. Bye.
Bye.